Ground Report with Mickie K, Andy Williams, and Lennox Smith.
Yes, indeed. Of course, a physical morning to all and sundry. I trust that I am being heard here, there, and everywhere. Of course, Andy's a bit delayed this morning due to circumstances beyond his control. But of course, you know, we operate as a team. I know that calls would have been made already this morning from getting in communication with myself, of course, and I'm sure that efforts are being made to communicate with Andy and Mickie as well, of course, with respect to your most important and favorite morning program. I'm talking about, of course, the ground report. But that being as it may, let me say formally, of course, and in case I will have, of course, overlooked my basic etiquette, let me say, of course, a pleasant good morning to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are streaming on the World Wide Web, a pleasant good day to you. This is yesterday ground report, of course, this Tuesday morning. Andy will be a bit delayed, but that being as it may, we continue, of course, to do what is required in order to treat with the issues of the day and to make certain that you are well informed, because at the end of the day, as we have always said, that informed decision making is crucial for the advancement of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, as you did on the 28th of April, having been informed as to the iniquities and to the challenges that would have been posed by the previous administration in terms of the issues that they were supposed to address as a government. We saw that, of course, we were either hoodwinked, betrayed, or clearly was a case of a collapsed vision or collapsed visionary institution that was supposed to take Trinidad and Tobago forward, claiming, of course, in the run-up to both elections, 2015 and 2020, that they had the capacity, the history, etc. But of course, we know now that that history puts them in a light that none of us, if, well, let me put it this way, that most of us or all of us who may have had or wished for some kind of historical, let's say, input would have concluded, as we are concluding now, that they have miss in more ways than one the ball, and that Trinidad and Tobago ought to be at this point in time the Singapore and the Dubai of the West, in the Western Hemisphere. Yes, we are still considered to be, comparatively speaking, and in the Western Hemisphere, I think the third most wealthy island or country in this part of the world, having regard, of course, to our per capita GDP, which suggests that we are pretty rich. But clearly, what we are seeing is an inequitable distribution and the inability of the PNM administration to devise a mechanism to equitably distribute the resources of the country. And thus, of course, we have found ourselves where there are very acute instances of poverty, too acute not to be concerned, and at the same time, everyone, of course, having a concern as to why it is that Trinidad and Tobago has found itself over many years of not just extreme wealth, comparatively speaking, and with the number of persons that are this wealth is supposed to be divided among. I don't want to hazard a guess at this point in time, but at one time I think it was 20. If all of the wealth of the country was supposed to be distributed among the population, everybody should get a little 20,000. Some say more US. If we were to monetize our wealth and of course distribute it among the population, it should amount to that. So per capita income, in other words, is the term that is used to generate that kind of analysis. Of course, we have a budget coming up pretty soon. We have this side of the country, East Port of Spain, while we would have had a generic, or should I say a plenary session of the Laventille East, Laventille West, Port of Spain South, Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West constituencies assembling at the Queen's Park Savannas a couple of weeks ago in order to, of course, give vent to the request of the Prime Minister and, of course, to promote the whole question of democracy. People, of course, making an input into the budgetary arrangements. And I've said, of course, on numerous occasions on the corridor transformation, a budget, really and truly, I put it in the context. I'm talking about the definition of a budget. I put it in the context of the definition of an economics, where, of course, people end up choosing from a limitless variety of goods and services, with limited resources, meaning money, but you have plenty things to choose from, and how you end up choosing, and therefore the question of prioritization and the question of what is required at this point in time, and 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of the hierarchy of importance, in order to, of course, treat with the running and the management of the country. But of course, as far as a budget is concerned, I say that is merely a projection of that economic analysis, because it is futuristic. You don't have a cent yet, palpably, but you know where it's coming from, you know where it is located, and then of course you can roll it out based on your budgetary predictions or your budgetary expectation, but all of which, of course, is futuristic. And of course, in this particular case, we are talking about the 2025-26 a budget. Of course, 25, the year 25, because it would have been read in 2025, but really and truly, it is catering for 2026, and then of course that cycle or that process continues into 2026, and then of course you'll call it 2026-27 budget, because the fiscal year is so skewed that you have to, of course, define it that way. I know that some time ago, when it was considered to be at the end of the year, a budget will take place just there about November. There was a concern that the PSIP, which is a major part of the budgetary arrangement and analysis, the PSSP is the Public Sector Investment Program, which really and truly targets and works in concert with the GDP of the country, the augmenting of the country, and the spending capacity of the government in order to facilitate private sector and other areas of development in the country. But it was felt that many of the construction projects would not have the benefit of the maximum amount of the dry season. And that is why, of course, it was readjusted to start somewhere of the budgetary presentation to start in September and completed in October, so that quite a lot of the sunny part of our season or our climate will be able to be used by, of course, those technicians and those civil engineers and other persons who have outdoor work to do as part of the development of Trinidad and Tobago. Mainly, of course, infrastructure and particularly the area of infrastructure and utility. I'm talking about roads, bridges, of course, waterworks that may have to be dealt with, including, of course, the retention or the maintenance of electricity installations, and of course communications installations and the maintenance thereof. So it was a very deliberate and intentional approach to make sure that productivity and the spending of the resources of the country is much more efficaciously or much more efficiently conducted. Once again, of course, let me say welcome. Andy. It will be a bit delayed. Pleasant good morning to all and sundry. I like to say that way. Andy will go into all of the details and the individuals that he will, of course, normally say hello to, and to, of course, give that personal intervention or that personal feel. And I know that the people relish that. I know that you look forward to that. But not this morning. So far, I'm sure that when he comes on, because of his forte, because of his commitment to that, I'm sure that he will be addressing the start of his journey this morning on the program with that approach. Granted, of course, it may be a little late, but I'm sure that he will find the time to say good morning individually. But that being as it may, let me just go into some of the headlines this morning. And of course, it's a mix as usual, but there's an issue that I would want to address as well. In the meantime, I would ask that people, of course, put in their respective comments by way of WhatsApp. And to make certain that happens, well, your WhatsApp voice notes, do it in the meantime so that Andy could have an opportunity and to get as much of them delivered to the rest of us, because I don't have access to them. He is at main studio, and therefore he handles that aspect of it. But just in case, the number to call is 366-3053, 366-3053 for the new callers and the regulars. Just to give you a reminder that you can WhatsApp, give your views on WhatsApp in a voice note. Short. We have complaint about that from time immemorial. I trust that people by now would have understood that it has to be short because we just have about, 3 to 4 hours on air from 6 to 10 o'clock. And therefore, we would like to put in as much information as possible and to, of course, have you participate because this is an interactive program. For phone calls, even though you may not be able to get a call in now because Andy has to be there or some substitute we will have from time to time, a technician in studio to, of course, monitor and manage these calls. But just in case, the numbers to call, two numbers, 225-6644, 225-6644, and the other number, of course, 239-5120. 239-5120 is the other number. Don't forget, of course, WhatsApp. I know that people are going to be, I'm sure, busy formulating your thoughts and giving your views by way of the voice notes. So let me repeat that number again. Only WhatsApp here. WhatsApp 366-3053, 366-3053. Leave your voice notes. And when Andy gets on board, certainly he will regurgitate or he will share it with all of us, the entire world. That being as it may, let me just say funeral on Thursday for accident, a drunk victim, and of course, that unfortunate situation where I think this young lady driving, and of course she ran over a bridge, and apparently wasn't able to extricate herself from probably the seat belt, as the case may be. And what transpired is that she lost her life, and of course, according to the autopsy, she died of asphyxiation, which of course it means the lack of oxygen. And it wasn't about so she could have been saved if the bystanders, who of course went to her rescue, had gotten there on time. Then of course she might have been able to be saved, because it had to be very quick movement, because as you know, while you last a little longer as a human being, without food, certainly without air, is a different challenge altogether. So that's one. Synonym and Europe became more efficient, less corrupt under the PNM. Now, these fellas have the audacity, and I want to, of course, pause there a bit, because I find it, not just passing strange, but uniquely hypocritical of these guys to make these statements as if they were in office still, because you expect to get that kind of what I consider to be outlandish and phantasmagorical statements, unbelievable statements, inexplicable statements. While they were in government, we were regaled with all of that, and of course we have concluded that they are about mama guy. They are about, of course, superficiality. They are about illusion. They are about, of course, public relations, and they are about propaganda. Well, this is another mainly propaganda piece that Synonym felt that he had an obligation to, of course, share with the population via one of the media houses, and he did that. And I want to say, it's simply far from the truth. He mentioned two areas, and he compared it, of course, with what they did with respect to URP between 2015 and the 28th of April. And then, of course, he made the comparison, which, of course, we expect between 2010 and 2015. And what he was saying is that more money was spent on URP between 2010 and 2015. That is his argument. And somehow that makes it less corrupt and more efficient. Let me repeat. Synonym has said in his response, claiming somehow to suggest that the URP was a den of corruption between 2010 and 2015, as opposed to URP between 2015 and the 28th of April this year. Let us examine that. If it is that they spend more money under the Kamala Prasad Bisesa then administration, it simply means that more people would have been employed. It's obvious. And more projects would have been as well pursued. That goes without saying. It means that if it is that they spend less money, as we have seen, it means that less people would have been employed under the PNM, and less projects would have been pursued. That is common sense. And to suggest that somehow, because more money was spent, that somehow it was more corrupt, I think is an asinine assessment. And of course, further indicts fellas like Sidanan, who ought not to be in government in the first place. I mean, that is the man who said that the flooding that took place and washed away the road to Manzanilla through the coconut, remember that? He said that something happened, that the moon reached closer to the earth, and as a consequence, that situation occurred. Nothing about human intervention, nothing about, of course, adequate maintenance of the road, etc. Or it may well be a phenomenon, but that is the kind, not even the phenomenon, as he explained, makes sense, because of course it's not for the first time in the cycle of 365 and a quarter days that you will have, of course, the sun, the moon at some point reaching closer to the earth, and then of course on the earth's journey, earth and the moon's journey around the sun, or put another way, no, the earth's journey around the sun. So I just don't understand that logic, but they say that in order to, of course, as I said, generate some kind of propaganda benefit that clearly today we know them to be total and absolute nincompoops. So that is a non-argument. I think the other point that he made with respect to corruption in URP, the other question was about gang and gang warfare. Again, why these people are so myopic and as though they are intellectually and cognitively and cerebrally deficient. Because if you are making that kind of argument, then your administration would have supposed to have what? Less gangs, I'm talking about criminal gangs, and less murders. Here it is, in the face of successive murder record breaking periods under the PNM, he makes that statement to somehow believe that we are so damn stupid that we would not know that in spite of his claim, his recent claim about gang expansion and of course corruption, that there were more murders under the PNM, and by fact and by figures and by analysis, that has become typical. Once the PNM is in government, there are more murders and therefore more crime and criminality, and indeed the proliferation of gang and gang activities, as was enunciated in the parliament by former Attorney General under the PNM. I'm talking about Faris Al-Rari. I mean, they are simply spitting in the sky and it falling in their faces. And I would prefer, frankly, and I'm sure that you would have reached the ad nauseum position, sickening position, why not just shut up? Because you're talking nonsense. Nonsense all entirely. All right, people, so let me continue. Of course, U.S. State Department proposes 15,000 U.S. bond for visa. That is a tremendous development. We don't know if Trinidad and Tobago would be caught in that dragnet, so to speak. But the U.S. has decided that persons who are entering their country or who desire to enter their country for business purposes or for pleasure or as a tourist, they will have to deposit 15,000 US as a bond to make certain that they come back or they return or they get out of their country when they would have been given the privilege to go there. A new development, I think it will be implemented, I think, sometime early this month, and this month has already started. I'm talking about August. But that is another development that is taking place. Of course, when we look at the statistics, and I'm surprised that when compared with places like India and other countries in the Caribbean as well, Trinidad and Tobago has a very low record in terms of people staying in the United States more than the time that they would have been that would have been stated on their visa. So that is probably an advantage. Let's see if Trinidad and Tobago will be captured in that requirement, that proposed requirement of 15,000 US as a bond in order to enter the United States. I know that people will definitely, like myself, will not be going to the United States at all anytime soon. Of course, Al-Rawi slams the PM's grass cutter claims. But of course, the Prime Minister did in fact say that what you don't want is a country of grass cutters. URP is cutting grass, CPEP cutting grass, MTS cutting grass. Those who are engaged in reforestation has something to do with grass, and therefore, in such circumstances, you don't want that. What you want, of course, is more sustainable jobs, jobs that can pay and can, what the trade unions call these days, provide a living wage, but living wage on a sustained basis. We're going to have to talk about these programs from time to time, but what may be troubling to some is that there is a 6 months period for the assessing or the auditing of the accounts of CPEP. 6 months, and therefore the issue of, and of course the PNM are going to capitalize on that because the minister has not been able to say when contractors will resume work. But I suspect that they are looking at several things, including, of course, how those matters or the matter that would have been brought in court would pan out, and therefore, of course, that will determine, give a precedent as to how to move forward with respect to the implementation or the reinstating of contractors or the revamping of the whole contractual arrangement as far as CPEP is concerned. So we look forward to that. In the meantime, he did mention that there's an all-of-government approach as far as as they say, some 10,000 persons that may be affected. They're talking about the workers per se. And not only in that area, you have, of course, in other areas, including, of course, that of forestry and URP. URP has had, I think, a 2-fortnight suspension, which is in the normal flow of things as far as URP is concerned. That always happens because there's a break in order to not just assess, but in order to make certain that people don't reach a certain number of days to get certain benefits that our unemployment relief program ought not to project. So we see how that pans out. But there is a mechanism in place according to the ministers. So the Minister of Public Utilities, who has responsibility for CPEP and MTS as well. And then we have, of course, the Ministry of the People and Social Development. That minister, Ms. Ho, she has already mentioned that people who can identify themselves as workers in the program will be treated differently or expeditiously. Let us look at that. And quite apart from that, we have, of course, the fact that school books are to be provided by the Ministry of Education, quite apart from laptops. So, as far as I am concerned, I would have put into those laptops electronic books or have it available somewhere where, of course, the people can download these books that are talking about textbooks that they would be using as part of their educational equipment or apparatus. And of course, if they are from around here, George Street and in close proximity like Prince Street and so on, and they're living in what we call the plannings, well, of course, they are getting free internet, so therefore connectivity, as far as they are concerned, they are fortunate. I don't know what is happening in other parts of the country, but I also know that there has to be and is being contemplated a rollout to have, of course, public spaces be equipped with connectivity, meaning internet connection, Wi-Fi connection, so that the students can benefit from that. And I think it has another value that may have been overlooked. But of course, the PNM doesn't see it as important. So they would tell you, if they're giving you laptops, as we have seen, then you have to have, of course, a means test. That's the first thing. But this government is not about means test or anything like that. It is our national policy. There's no discrimination, and everybody entering Form 1 will get a laptop. But I want to say that a national coverage of connectivity provides an opportunity, particularly in communities that are vulnerable, what the police may describe as crime-ridden or crime hotspots, as they would more specifically call it. It has a coming together effect as well. If you place these facilities in public spaces, whether it be by the savannah, whether it be in some park, whether it be by a school outside, but of course outside the school compound, etc., the community center, places where people can and ought to be assembling. What will happen as they gather in these places, they have greater interaction, because in communities like these, that is what is required. That is a very functional and very uplifting, should I say, practice that I benefit from when I was growing up, of course, being part of the village council, etc., and part of the football team or the sports club, as the case may be. A lot of that kind of coming together prevents persons from going on frolics of their own, and of course engaging in activities that they otherwise will not engage, particularly if these activities are negative. But the point I am making is that it brings a coming together, and I'm saying this from the perspective. I remember very distinctly that the grocery distribution program that was initiated by the NAR. No, the PNR wasn't the inventor of grocery distribution. It's actually the NAR. So that was between 1986 and 1991, after which they were out of office. But that period, you had, of course, the physical grocery distribution. So what used to happen is that a particular entity within the community will be given the responsibility by virtue of a check to, of course, and they will specify what a hamper should look like. In other words, you can't put alcohol and all these things that does not provide any benefit nutritionally. So the grocery would be organized by these organizations from within the community, and then within the community you have a distribution day, maybe at the community center, some school that may be not functioning or may not function for that particular period, but usually it's at the community center or some other facility that is well known to the community where people gather. And on that occasion, the distribution takes place. Now, I mentioned the question of interacting, community interaction, community interaction, community camaraderie is promoted in such an environment, is facilitated in such an environment, is spawned in such an environment. And you may ask the question, well, how come? Well, I want to tell you that if it is that everybody in that immediate community comes together, and they must, because they come to collect their hampers, they have to talk. And in talking, for example, in casual conversation about the children, for example, one may well tell the other, but listen, I find my son engaging with bad company, and this fella who is up to no good or is a known no good in the community, I see like he gravitating and like that is his friend. And then another parent of a similarly young man or girl will say, well, listen, what I did to avoid that, I got a job for him somewhere in Port of Spain, as the case may be, or somewhere wrong, or put him in a trade school environment, in a vocational skill training or learning environment. And because of that information, the person who is now experiencing his or her child, usually is a woman, will go to these grocery collection exercises. So I had to be real. But the fact of the matter is that she is now equipped with information that here it is, there is a mechanic shop down the road, or a tailoring shop down the road, or a place in Port of Spain where young men like that could be taken in to learn something, and therefore, of course, their spare time is now much more, should I say, adequately and developmentally used to build a capacity so that at least at the end of the day, they learn a trade and therefore earn a living without having to be influenced by the gang and the elements in the very community that are bent on engaging, of course, in gang activities and, of course, gang warfare, etc. I just give that as a simple example, but it has some significant developmental, attitudinal, as well as conduct factors for the positive. And I will encourage, of course, and I have been doing that, this government, to look at those kinds of synergies, those kinds of arrangements, so as to get Trinidad and Tobago back on even keel. Because let's face it, one of the arguments that was advanced by even the opposition now, I see Penelope Beckles on that as well as Alwari. I see Penelope Beckles was talking about the whole question of crime and criminality, as if, well, look, she was part of the PNM administration, but let us leave that aside. We know that they are delusionary and they are unrealistic and that they are painting a picture that does not necessarily in reality. But She did mention about international advisories against Trinidad and Tobago because she was at some function in New York, I believe it was, and she then, of course, said that we having a bad name out there. Well, I want to know if it was yesterday, yesterday or since the 28th of April, that Trinidad and Tobago would have had a bad name, and they were not in office for over for close to 10 years. But that being as it may, because it has to be said that this is about political grandstanding as far as they are concerned. Never giving some solid solutions. Whites in government and now out of government, they engage in the blame game because they don't have the responsibility but just to talk, and talk is cheap. But the fact of the matter is that from time immemorial, we have had, of course, advisories against Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in the metropolitan countries, where we will rely on both tourism as well as investment. So that a person who is willing to invest some money in Trinidad, or in fact in Laventille or East Port of Spain, for that matter, that is resident in the United States, Canada, UK, France, Germany, Spain, wherever where there are, of course, developed countries who can make decisions to invest in countries like ours that requires, of course, that level of investment to earn foreign exchange, etc., and to expand, of course, the economy to accommodate a growing population. Let's face it, and therefore provide opportunities for work, because that is what we have to do. We must do that. And therefore, the whole question of diversification comes to the fore. But I'm saying from that perspective, in terms of the advisories against Trinidad and Tobago, the whole question of having a reputation of being the sixth most dangerous place in the world, and per capita the most amount of terrorists, does not augur well. And of course, the leader of the opposition now, Penelope Beckles, ought to have known that, or ought to have known what she knows now, or bellowing now, when the PNM was in government between 2015 and the 28th of April. So what is the purpose of making those observations now as if they are new observations, when in fact your government, you were part of a government that facilitated, that fomented all of that negativity, and it is for the present administration under the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisasa, Prime Minister, SC, and MP, to of course to address that matter solidly. Of course, to give some credit to the opposition leader, she did say that there is a requirement of a bipartisan, if not a multi-partisan approach to this matter, because she did talk about the inability of the police to investigate and to bring matters to court, and when it does come to court, the evidence is so paltry, so insufficient, that the accused usually walks out the court free because of the decision of the judicial officer presiding over the particular matter in question. So we have all of that, and that was a matter that, of course, was being bandied about under the last administration of the PNM. And I want you to take note that it always appears that there's always something sinister when this government, meaning that the PNM government, the last administration, engages in these kinds of supposedly developmental, in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago, policies and programs, but eventually it falls short of the target that they would have espoused. We know for a fact that if they had implemented the revenue authority, that would have been used as a political football and a political toxic instrument to target their opponents. We know that when they tell us that the Police Service Commission is an independent body as espoused by the former Prime Minister Rowley, we know that their conduct does not suggest that. Because why would you, because you are Prime Minister and head of the National Security Council, make an intervention because you want to target one man and prevent him, of course, his name from reaching the Parliament? You then, of course, intervene in the short list. That is the function of the Police Service Commission, the PSC. Why would you do that? Because you have a beef with the man. So the point I am making here is that different to that approach, here it is, the PSC put out their list. It goes to Parliament. They have 1, 2, 3. The person who is at the top of it, they would have vetted and would have felt that that is the person best suited for the job, the task ahead as Commissioner of Police. And here it is, of course, the present administration, the Kamala Prasad Bisasa-led UNC and coalition administration. They simply, of course, ratify that. And the man is working unfettered and is expected, of course, to do his job in all respects, fearful of no one, and doing so, of course, conscientiously and consistent with the mandate expected of him and the oath of office that he would have taken in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago. And that's it. Very, very simple. But the PNM, they believe they must control the outcome, and where their own people may be in jeopardy, may be questioned, they then try to influence it. Where am I going with this? I'm going with this from the perspective of the Vincent Nelson matter. Here it is that a sitting Attorney General then, are talking about Al-Rari himself. They brought, of course, legislation to the fore about attempts to short circuit or to expedite court matters. So you had the plea bargaining process and all of that. But in projecting that as a policy on the surface, it sounds good. Good policy. Because I can mention much more than that, but this one I think is the most complex one, which I think if we get the complex one in our heads, then of course the other more simple ones will be able to be easily extrapolated or analyzed. So here it is, you have that. Vincent Nelson goes to court, and he of course has a plea bargaining arrangement. And the matter is finished. He pleaded guilty and so on, and he got, of course, some time to pay the money that the court had adjudicated on, only to find out sometime later that all of that was part of a sinister plot. Part of a sinister plot to target significant political rivals. In this case, of course, Alan Ramlogan and Ramdeen, both of whom were or are connected, you would say, or were and are connected to the UNC. And of course, the whole intention of the PNM was to make certain that you target the party called the UNC so they will never get into office. But the population, the electorate will see the PNM as pristine,
Good morning, Mr. Lennox.
as suitable, as one that the electorate will have no choice but to elect again and again and again in office. So they use public office in that way so as to malign and to target their opponents for their political ascendancy and advantage. And we have seen where that has gone. because what clearly would have happened in that situation, because they also talk about persons who may be giving information that they will relish, and they will bring legislation to protect them. Protect those persons who are prepared to give information. And clearly, some civil servant, recognizing the hypocrisy and and those documents would have passed over their desk, because you can't do without the public service. So those documents would have passed over their desk, and they're saying, but why would they try to set up these people? And therefore would have communicated, obviously, with the opposition, telling them what the government is up to. Because inside of the situation with Vincent Nelson, information that the opposition ought not to have known. And since it was a conspiracy to try to stay in office by maligning and by sending to prison, unconscionably set them up in order to send them to prison, Rowley and they don't mind that, once they get, of course, the political edge. Yes, I'm talking about whistleblowers who, of course, say no.
Good morning, Mr. Lennox.
So they would have
Lines are open
communicated
now.
with the opposition clearly. That's how that scenario had to have gone. Because, I mean, up to the point when Vincent Nelson was before the court, no one knew. It just as how no one knew. No one knew of Rowley's intention when he insisted that those pieces of paper that he called emails should be vetted and investigated by the Integrity Commission. By the Integrity Commission. Nobody knew at that point in time. Everybody was saying, well, all right, let's see where this thing goes. Because people were of the view that it was a genuine, straightforward case where Rowley presents those fake pieces of paper in the parliament. His integrity is intact. He was able, of course, to convince, or should I say, hoodwink the population that he's a man of high ideas, moral and ethics. And none of us knew until another whistleblowing event took place, clearly, to inform the opposition as to what Rowley's intention really was. When, of course, it turned out that he visited the then chairman of the Integrity Commission, Ken Gordon, visited him with those same pieces of paper, false paper. And more than that, when it was discovered, and Gordon had to step aside, and the Integrity Commission eventually adjudicated, discussed the matter, and said that is nonsense. That is nonsense. You had another member of the Integrity Commission, Justice Vento, a former judge, who resigned from the Integrity Commission because he couldn't do it otherwise. He resigned from the Integrity Commission because he is trusted with confidentiality on matters of the nature that he was prepared, of course, to publicize. To resign. And then, of course, state that he was not satisfied with the majority decision of the Integrity Commission that those pieces of paper were not emails, were fake, and had no place, of course, in the political or the discussion or the discourse of the commission and in the public domain as well. Yeah. But more than that, Rowley knew that not only if he had this man inside of there, talking about Ken Gordon, he also had Vento as well, because Vento resigned, and that by itself may have suggested at the time to you and I that that man is a former judge, so therefore his integrity is intact. He couldn't be a judge unless that is in fact the case. But later down the road, we are now becoming aware that he was made the loan commissioner for lands that would have been acquired or was about to be acquired by the previous administration, talking about between 2010 and 2015, Kamala Prasad Bisasa, the lands associated with the highway, the extension of the highway to Point Fortin. Nobody is stupid. It's obvious that had to be Rowley's friend. And therefore, inside of the Integrity Commission, he had a second layer to get his way with respect, of course, to those fake pieces of paper. And if he had gotten his way without, of course, the intervention of those whistleblowers clearly that say, no, this thing stinks to low and deep hell. I ain't talking heaven, not with the PNM. Low and deep hell. You know what would have happened. What more could have happened to Kamala Prasad Bisasa as Prime Minister and the members of her cabinet at that time if they had succeeded? Treason, you know. Because of course, when he realized that was failing, he then of course switched it to the police and saying, of course, that the acting commissioner at that time favors the UNC, and therefore he is not the right one to what? To investigate. He's not the right one to investigate. The Integrity Commission should. But when, of course, not telling us at all that he went to Ken Gordon's home and did not go through, of course, the process of the registrar at the Integrity Commission. He had to deposit his information there, as the UNC would have done, to get information on anybody that they would have had some concern about and to seek information. That is what we are talking about. So no way must these people be trusted. No way. So let me get back, of course, to the matter that gave rise to that diversion, but of course of a significant nature, and adding to the argument or the discussion about Vincent Nelson. Nobody knew when all of that was happening at face value that there was an indemnity agreement brokered and organized by Al-Rari, and I dare say the government of Trinidad, the cabinet of Trinidad, and I say so without fear of contradiction. I say so without fear of contradiction, Rowley. I say so with every single member of the cabinet then that was part and parcel of that charade and that, of course, conspiracy. Because I've just shown you, built into it, another example with respect, of course, to the Integrity Commission and those fake emails. Same pattern of behavior. But in this case, Rowley was able to get the entire cabinet to agree. I reached the decision of the cabinet to close down Petro-Trinidad. I ain't reached there yet. Let me just get rid of this. Yes. I ain't reached there yet.
Good morning, Lennox.
But the fact of the matter is,
good morning.
that here it is.
Hello, good morning. Lines are open.
The then Attorney General, are we ready there? We have anybody there?
No, but the lines are open.
Andy?
I said, Mr.
Andy is there?
I said the lines are open.
Oh, the lines are okay, right? So you are there. All right, okay. So people, we have our technician, our substitute technician, our human service technician with us, of course. Don't forget, of course, the lines are open. You can, of course, I will be obligated to take a breather. Otherwise, of course, you make your call. So the lines are open. Don't forget, of course, the numbers to call. That once again, it appears that Andy is not yet ready. My understanding that it was temporary, but let me just give you the numbers to call: 225-6644, 225-6644. Numbers to call, of course, to get into the program right now, and 239-5120. 239-5120. Thank you very much, of course, technician, for, of course, your sudden deployment. I know that you're always on standby, so I want to extend, of course, I'm sure that Andy would have done that already, and on behalf of Mickie as well, for stepping in at the appropriate time, because the central control is crucial to this whole operation. Without you there, I would not be able to function as I'm functioning now. And of course, I'm sure that WhatsApp, I'm sure that you'll be able to provide some WhatsApp information as well. So those of you who want to speak and vent, but you can, of course, do so at 366-3053. 366-3053. That's the number to call for the new callers in terms of wanting to leave a message that will be aired in lieu of course, Andy's absence at this point in time. You have anything?
You can go ahead. Nothing on the line, sir.
Okay, all right. So you will tell me it's not an interruption. Is mandatory. So here we have a situation where Harare has an agreement with Vincent Nelson. None of us knows. In a criminal matter, Alan Ramlogan and Ramdeen, in the meantime, were charged by the police for misbehavior in public office, bribery, etc., or kickback, they call it. I'd really like to call it the Alan Ramlogan Ramdeen kickback scenario. But here it is, not piece of information with respect to the indemnity arrangement. And let me tell you how dangerous and how evil and how heartless these people are. You hear what I say? I say present tense. Vincent Nelson had a medical issue, cancer. The monies, the $10 million that he was claiming, came as a result of work that he did under the Kamala Prasad Bisasa UNC administration. We have a call?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, Lennox. Good morning. Good morning, Andy, Mickie, newbie, and to everybody out here. Lennox, you're holding down the fort, boy. You're holding it down with all your might. Lennox, are you hearing me?
Talk a little louder. I hear you too well.
You sure? Because the neighbors...
I have on my headphone, so nobody could fault me for that.
Exactly, Lennox. Here now, not only is Al-Wari complicit in what happened in the AG's office, everybody who signed off on that, right? And my information is allegations are Sindora signed off on it as well, right? So they
Yes.
are all complicit, and all of them should be charged, Lennox. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later.
Yes. I heard part of it. Is there any way you can make some adjustments, boy? Because I have my headphone on and I just heard part of it. And I want to hear every syllable that the callers would have made. We have another call?
No, you could go ahead, Lennox.
All right. Yes. So I don't know if she would have covered some of the grounds that I either would have covered or to cover. But at the risk of any one of them, let me just continue by saying that here it is. Vincent Nelson had a medical issue, cancer. Cancer, people? Cancer. The money that he was asking for, the 10 million, we say is a bribe, but really and truly is money that he earned under the Kamala Prasad Bisasa administration, which the courts agree. Because the PNM took the matter to court, saying that he is undeserving of it, and the court said yes. You know that the PNM and Al-Rari wanted to appeal that matter, the court said give the man his money, the $10 million. They decide to appeal. And of course, it is public knowledge, public information that Al-Rari told him, well, listen, we're going to appeal and appeal and appeal because he wants this statement of not just indemnity here being, of course, preventing, of course, Vincent Nelson from further jeopardy. So they have this arrangement, including, of course, in it is the absorption by the DPP, an intervention into the office of the DPP to avoid prosecutions and so on. That's on the one hand, and then, of course, the Mercy Committee to forgive him for pleading guilty in the substantive case that came up, where he, of course, he plea bargained. Yes, very complicated. They are known for these complicated shenanigans, and we must not put it beyond them. And therefore, the point I am making that when Penelope Becker speak, that they are willing, of course, to cooperate and have bipartisan and tripartite and multi-partisan discussion. No. Their objective is to get into office, full stop, and then do us the evil that we have seen them exhibit between 2015 and the 28th of April. And I have a position with respect to why they did not pursue, or put another way, why the EBC didn't take them on this time around to, of course, undermine the elections in their favor. I have a position on that I will share with you sometime. But the fact is that here it is, that when the news broke by the loyal whistleblowers to the opposition, everything was scuttled. The DPP had to, of course, withdraw the charges made or preferred to Anand Ramlogan and Ramdeen. And of course, Rowley was up and down the country before all of that took place, saying that Vincent Nelson is a British QC, so he gave him the prominence. Of course, he is the man who said that, of course, he wanted to divest himself of the colonial shackles. But here it is, at that point in time, very conveniently, he says that you know who he is? British QC, emphasizing. So in other words, my interpretation of that is that he's better than all of the SCs, the senior councils that we have. That's what he's saying. And just in case you believe that Rowley was serious about divesting from, of course, our colonial past because, of course, of the ship. That is part and parcel of my position as far as wanting to win the 2025 April 28 elections. That's part of that scheme. But the more raw and more pellucid position in terms of his consistency only for some diabolical agenda is that of the Magnificent Seven, including, of course, the Red House and the President's House. How come he wasn't talking that kind of talk when he insisted and when he told us to belt tighten, but finding money to restore those colonial buildings, including, of course, the Whitehall? Why didn't he? It's always what the religionists will call situational ethics, or for political currency to stay in office. But his true position is that he is as colonial as could be in terms of his sympathy. But it's only when the political currency could be augmented, they then, of course, take a position that they suddenly love the steel band movement, etc., etc. We will go there in due course. But let me complete the saga of the Vincent Nelson Gate matter. So here it is that Rowley, before the breaking of all of those revelations, and before that, let me just say as well that Vincent Nelson's ailment was no concern of Al-Rari and the cabinet of the country. And Rowley, no concern. The man pleaded, he said he has to go to England, he wanted money. And they never gave it to him until they forced him to sign that indemnity so as to make certain that their nefarious act has come full circle, and that that whatever vacuum there would have been, whatever space there would have been closed, and therefore Alan Ramlogan and Ramdeed was signed, sealed, and delivered to, of course, make a jail. They didn't care about Vincent Nelson's ailment and the fact that he's a human being just as them, and they could have been in the position as well, and that they withheld the man's money. The court say give him it. Al-Rari and them threatened that they will appeal and appeal and appeal all the way to the Privy Council. Why the man, of course, is concerned about his health and the monies that was owing to him. It doesn't matter how he got it, but the fact of the matter is that the court said that it was his. And they were leveraging that. And of course, the man's health. So that he had no choice but to, of course, sign that arrangement in order to get his money. Then he got his money. And he went, of course, to England to address that ailment or that medical issue that he would have had. And fortunate or unfortunate for him, the cancer receded. And therefore, of course, he's back in Trinidad, of course, treating. Of course, he just lost the appeal on conviction. But the Vincent Nelson saga still continues. There's more. But I want to also say that while that was happening, and we didn't know, we were saying, of course, well, boy, if that is the case, because Rowley was up and down the place saying that he is a Queen's Counsel. And therefore, Alan Ramlogan and Ramdeed are scamps. Yes, that is the intention, and let's not waste time. And they get Vincent Nelson, of course, embroiled in their corruption. Yeah, in their deception to deplete the treasury of the country. Rowley was up and down the place talking that talk. Before the intervention of the DPP in withdrawing the matters, and before we knew that there was an arrangement between the then Attorney General Al-Rari and Vincent Nelson, claiming that he could do certain things to ease the pressure that he would have had. All you have to do is to sign that document, of course, by certain, and of course, witnessed by certain lawyers that are sympathetic to the PNM, of course, and part and parcel of that conspirators act. Yeah, but Rowley was up and down the place. He even talked about Pamasa. Remember Pamasa, and of course the Abdul Malik matter. Then he, of course, he turned witness against them, and of course caused all of them to have a date with the hangman. Yeah. Rowley was up and down the place, talking that kind of talk, and saying deliberately and specifically and poignantly and conspicuously that the intention was to have members of the cabinet of Kamala Prasad Bisesa, I could never forget those words, put in handcuffs, put in jail. That was Rowley's statement. utilizing a man who have and had a cancerous state of ailment, and they didn't care about that. They didn't care about that. All they wanted was to get the advantage, the political advantage that would ensue as a consequence of getting Alan Ramlogan and Ramdeen behind bars. By that concoction, yes, that was the purpose. Why am I saying all of this? Let me, just in case you just joined us, to say to you, do not trust Penelope Beckles and that dozen plus one group of jokers. That's the point I am making. So they will create all kinds of what I consider to be hairy-fairy argument about CPEP workers. They love CPEP workers and so on. You heard Al-Rari? Much of the news today is about Al-Rari, and of course, Sinanan just joined the bandwagon. Penelope was there all the time, and then of course you have this neophyte from the Beatum indicating that some war with himself, because I don't know who is at war with anybody in Trinidad, but he clearly is at war with himself. A total neophyte, an infant in the political arena. Unfortunately, of course, I have to say so. While of course I love Laventil, Beatum is part of Laventil, and so on. And of course, I would have relished the idea that of course a young man, a lawyer, not accomplished one, but a lawyer nonetheless, as far as qualification is concerned, and representing of course Beatum in the first case, and of course Laventil West in the second case, as far as I'm concerned. But here it is. Total collapse. So Rowley up and down the place, indicating to the world, and of course making reference to Pamasa and the Abdul Malik case. Have you ever seen, of course, people, according to him, in the case of Abdul Malik, turned state witness? So he is claiming that Vincent Nelson turned state witness. He's claiming that. And then it turned out to be a statement from a man who studies too much blasted rocks. Too much rocks. But he called himself a volcanologist and a geologist and a geographer, whatever. Too much rocks. Because he's so stupid. He didn't know that in criminal matters, you cannot bribe anybody with money to say something. In criminal matters, a fellow who turned state witness, the only consideration that he could get is that he or she will not be prosecuted. Not money. So therefore, Alan Ramlogan and Ramdeen, they had the state to hang. Unfortunately, of course, the UNC will have to pay the price when they make the demand in the court for that, of course, what I consider to be dastard, evil, wicked, diabolical, treacherous, treasonous act of the PNM under Rowley, under Al-Rari. So they have no moral and ethical ability. So you understand why Rowley is now paranoid. So he has invented somebody coming for him from Trinidad because of some encounter you would have had in Antigua about Interpol, the international police organization that, of course, assists countries but when people particularly are at large and running fugitive or foul of the law. And once you are a member, of course, they are obligated, of course, to engage. Yes, so here it is. Rowley having said all over the place that Pamasa, etc. And when the total of the information came to the public in the public domain, and to see the unpardonable sin that these people would have committed, Rowley has the audacity and the temerity and the gall and the record. I would say that goes in the Guinness Book of Records, where he says that he didn't know anything about Rowley, about Al-Rari's operation. So they start, of course, to throw each other under the bus. Or was it part of a strategy? You will have to determine when I'm completed. But here it is. He said he didn't know. Neither he nor the cabinet. So he defended the cabinet. Nobody asked him about the cabinet. Nobody asked members of the cabinet, but he defended the cabinet one time. Neither he nor members of the cabinet. But he was up and down the country stating that Vincent Nelson is a Queen's Counsel. You know who he is? A Queen's Counsel. Who want in the hands of his lawyers to extract time, date, place, and money. I put it in that part of it, paraphrasing here, and money. So as to put members of the Kamala Prasad Bisasa government in handcuffs, in jail. That is what you were saying up along the place. And as soon as the information, the real information broke, he started to backpedal now. Backpedal. Just as what he did, of course, with the breaking of the news that he intervened in the shortlist that was projected by the Police Service Commission. He eventually had to on that particular occasion say it was him because there was nobody else he could throw under the bus. We have a call?
We have a call there.
Hello?
Oh yes, go ahead, caller. Go ahead, caller. Sorry about that.
Lennox, see if your headphones turn on.
Go ahead, caller.
Lennox, good morning again. Lennox, let me go again.
Sure.
And it was the Zami man who went to England and exposed Vince Nelson, right? When he wanted all these goodies to help him go against Anand Ram Logan and Gerald Ramdeen, right? And he went and he exposed him to his boss, right? They took away all his benefits. He went and exposed him to the government. They took away the title of King's Counsel, right?
Yes, he was disbarred, yes.
Yes, they stripped the man of everything, Lennox. And that is when he went against the PNM government. And he said he's not going to testify. But
We have some problem with that call there.
Yeah, talk a little louder. Something is happening here. I'm not getting it, cleanly. Like I need to do something that nobody else could. Because I've wearing my headphones, so nobody can
morning
see that.
Morning ground report, family, everybody. What I see now is that everybody saying the UNC closing down jobs and job losses, and these what people saying. Now, to me, I believe it's not the UNC fault. The UNC come on. We inherit a real bad economy. We inherit a bad everything bad, everything horrible. With concern with finances, right? So it's obvious certain companies and certain things that have to reform, got to shut down. We know we see it was coming, it was in the making. But what I want to understand is the people on them that are accountable for the contractors that was collecting the lump sum of money and the people that was paying them to collect it. What going on with them? What happening? They ain't making jail, they ain't getting before the courts, nothing happening. And this is what we want to see happening. We want to see them accountable.
Well said, my friend, well said. But I've often said on this program and elsewhere that their conduct is so blatant that gone are the days that politicians will not make a jail. That's all I can say. And of course, we have heard the Attorney General, the current Attorney General, talking about, I'll go to war with you, and he identified persons. What does that mean? Our Attorney General don't talk that just so. It means, therefore, that they are, in fact, under investigations. That is what that means. But the Attorney General will not, of course, spill the beans before the appropriate time, because of course you have to gather all the evidence and have an airtight case. And of course, Jeremy is a man who have been there before, and he would have learned from his mistakes.
On the line, please.
Lennox?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry about that just now. I don't know what happened there. Lennox, yeah. And they stripped the man. And Forrest and them took advantage of the man's sickness because they knew he was dying. He had prostate cancer. But you see, Lennox, the power press, I and a lot of us were praying that that man goes into remission to have to testify against Forrest and them. And you see what happened now? You see what happened? And Forrest have no shame whatsoever to come to tell this government to be careful about how they use an Anna Ram Logan. Who the hell is you to come to give this government advice?
Yeah, boy. I mean, he has the belly to even face the
population
more belly than a calabash. With a straight face. Ablum.
Yeah, more belly than a calabash.
We are consummate fools.
To come to tell the government to be careful how they use an Anna Ram Logan. Didn't you use Vincent Nelson to bring down the Anna Ram Logan and Gerald Ramney? Right? And the thing about it is that, and as you rightly said earlier, that was money that was owing to Vincent Nelson, and they did not want to give him. Even the courts, even the Privy Council, right, had questions about Vincent Nelson because in at one time, we had enough evidence to hold Malcolm Jones, and in the next time there were not sufficient evidence. So you see, from the onset, Vincent Nelson is a flip-flopper. And Lennox, before I go, Vincent Nelson also told the people UTT needed to be investigated. After he won the case for them, the PNM government, he said, and I have the article, where he said that UTT needs to be investigated because one of the auditors is saying the 2009 books or something was wrong with it. You waited until after the case was finished to come to tell people that, which means Lennox, the man, is also very dishonest. Thanks a lot, Lennox, and have a good one. Take care.
Yeah, he would have been, my conclusion is that as well, he would have been contributory to, of course, his demise and his travails. Go ahead. You have a call?
Good morning.
Good morning.
A pleasant morning to Lennox Smith, Andy William, and Mickie K. and all. Mr. Tabakit here.
Morning to you as well.
Are you hearing me properly?
Loud and clear at this time. Maybe it's because of your vocals, but go ahead.
Okay, I have a concern this morning, and this is where my concern lies, with influencers, TikTok influencers and bloggers. I realize a trend is taking place. If they cannot have the way they're coming out and bashing the government, just as recent, I realized an influencer. He went into the government services, whether self-help or social development. And this particular influencer will ask for documentation to process to fix his roof. And he could not supply that. The next thing he came out and started bashing the government when UNC win, everybody win. I am saying, I think it is not fair to the influencers and bloggers. If you're going to the various ministry, there is a process. You must have the documentation. If you do not have proper documents, now you can just come to the social media and say, well, you know what? I'm going to bash the UNC when everybody win, and Kamala they say everybody, you know. I am saying this cannot be fair. And I'm glad I raised this because I realize of lately everybody running to social media. If you do not have the proper requisite, you do not have the proper land title, they just cannot give you a grant because the workers will lose their job. So to all influencers, if you do not have the proper document and the whether self-help, social welfare, and they did not assist you, is not that they cannot assist you, you do not have proper documentation. So it's rather Lennox, you hear me?
Go ahead. I had a little distortion, a slight distortion earlier, but I'm hearing you now. When you said, "Are you hearing me?" Well, I'm hearing that very clear. But go ahead.
Yes, so I am saying to all bloggers, influencers, you cannot be disingenuous. If you go into the government services and you do not have the proper documentation, it is rather unfortunate that you would hop social media to bad talk and vilify the Prime Minister, the government. Get your proper document, then go into these places. Tabak it out and off. I thank you.
Yes, indeed. I share that view. I share that view implicitly, and I can give you, experience is the best teacher. Do we have a call first and foremost? I don't want to make sure that the callers.
Good morning, Mickie.
Good morning. Yes.
Well, concerning Emancipation Day, I just was just on a thinking mode here out of the box. I think the promenade should have some kind of display of artifacts and stuff, to get the people some kind of actual knowledge of what it is it's all about, some kind of museum history, so at the same point in time, whilst they celebrating, they could also get some kind of educational background of what it is, and see certain things, that back in the days, that what is this all about. So that is one thing that I know that we could look into perhaps next year, please the Lord, as I would say, and put that in place. Let me see if we could get some more information out, and some more educational background on this, for people who now coming in, now looking at it and getting themselves involved, so that at least we get this thing happening again once more. All right, so blessings everyone. It's just an observation, and maybe next time we can do something better. Blessings.
I think that observation is well placed.
Hey, Lennox, Andy, morning. Can someone answer me this question? Where is Sadura and where is John or young stepdaughter? Can someone answer that question for me, please? Thank you.
I think it's only them can answer that. Answer that like taking tooth from a baby, I suppose. Well, it should be easy, but it's not that easy. Yeah, but more like taking out your eye tooth. Very difficult.
I'll take this opportunity to say something on behalf of the drivers
Good morning.
of Trinidad and Tobago, all drivers, male and female. I have been supporting this government ever since they come into existence. My whole heart, because growing up as a child, I was hearing about Eric Williams. And as I grow older and I watch the development of this country, I believe that the country have been taken advantage from ever since. Because with oil and gas and the sugar estate, we never develop, and the citrus estate and all these things, we never develop as a country with oil and gas. Look how Guyana get oil and they're now doing good. They're starting to build proper roads and all these things. So I believe that the people have been taken advantage of ever since this government come into power. When I say this government, I'm talking about the PNM government, because we have no development. Healthcare going through, education system going through. People have been taken advantage. We're not getting nothing from the oil and gas at all. Nothing at all. We're not even getting free dry gas to cook our food. We have been victimized, and then this government, when I say the opposition right now, they was trying to tax out this country. Very horrifying. Looking to bring tax to every citizen of this country and rid the country of the money and they was not getting no work. People have been fired left, right, and center. They closed down the refinery. A lot of things to do. A lot of wicked things to do to this country. Look at what they do, CPEP and URP, and they come in and pretending that they like CPEP workers. They don't like them. They just want to get back inside and use the CPEP workers and URP workers as an excuse to feel sorry for them and making them feel that they have their back. They don't have their back. All the money that have been taken, as alleged, they should return it back to the government, right? Because that is unfair to the CPEP workers. They can't be giving them scrums and they're taking the billions. What I want to say is, when I talk about the drivers, when I say I agree for this government, right, this new government called UNC, and I don't agree with that award that they give to the police officers. I believe that is just giving police officers the power to share ticket out like nothing. You had to know how a person living. Some people renting, they're owing loans, they had to try to send to school. So the man have a proper job, a driver might have a car, you had to fix it. And I find when you give police officers an award for sharing 400 and 500 tickets, sometimes these people get 3,000 tickets, they have to pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and that is unfair to them because remember they have to mind the family. And these police officers, they have children, they have a wife, and they have children that have to go to school too, and they have to think about these families. So they think about themselves. They cannot come out and share ticket. That's what a man can pack up and give him more kind of ticket, and because they get an award. I don't agree with that. I call on the minister, Roger Alexander, to revamp that kind of thing. I find that is wickedness to the country, drivers and the whole. Because drivers have a car and they might not have the car standard. I don't say, who break the law, like breaking the light and not driving with light in there, that's a different thing, you know. You have no light, your lights blow and all, you have to check all these things before you move on the road. But so now a man, ball blow, you go in a hole and the ball blow. So something you have to give a little, you know, you can't be so aggressive for the drivers. So I don't agree with the police officers sharing plenty tickets and bragging and boasting about it and getting an award. That is to smile about. That is very wicked. That is wickedness in my book for drivers who have a family to mind, who have to pay a rent, who doing a small, who cannot get a big salary, and these drivers have to go and find this money to pay the court. That is not nice. If these police officers do this, other police officers will do it too. And these police officers who get the award will go back and do the same thing over and over. They have a family too. They have children to feed. They have a wife. You know, they have a family, they have a life, and they cannot go and lie down in the bed and sleep, knowing how much tickets they go and feel they're getting a praise for doing that. So I call on Roger Alexander to rethink what he do and do not support these officers who are sharing tickets out like that. And I find that what they have to do now is when a police officer gives a person a wrong ticket, let the police officer and the traffic warden pay out of their pocket the ticket that they give. Some drivers getting tickets for no reason at all. They're not, you know, listening to them. They just write them a book and give them a ticket and say, go and pay. Not even giving them the name. And aggressively tell them, don't come out of the car. Next thing they're doing, they say, don't come out of the car. The lights are working. That is unfair. How could you? I want to know what law they pass to tell a driver not to come out of his car. That is unfair. Because if a driver light is working, right, and one police officer, all the lights working, go ahead, and the next one stop him around here and say, don't come out of the car. The lights not working. That is unfair. You cannot tell a driver not to come out of his car. He's not a criminal. He's not wanted by the law. You understand? You can't tell a driver, you have to come out and see what you're talking about. Because when you issue him a ticket and tell him to come in the car, the man no pass one officer, and the next one stop and tell him to come in the car, that's not right. That is a wickedness that they're doing there. So according to these officers, have a heart, or they come from a mother and father, or they have family, or they don't like to do all your wickedness, or like to take advantage of all you, right? They have some good officers and some crooked ones. And I'm calling on Roger Alexander to not to support this award thing with officers who giving out ticket, investigate them, investigate the book, and why they give the ticket now. What purpose they give the ticket for, that's what they do. So my heart is out for these drivers. I'm not against the government, I'm not against the officers. I just see that have officers that is doing that for a joke, they don't care, and some of the traffic wardens, they don't care neither. So I'm calling on this government, this new government, to kind of put a stop to that. That is not right. That is taking advantage of the drivers. You don't know what job they have, what way to work out, making a living. These fellas are going to find a money to pay. That is not nice. That comes just like the demerit points. The merit points are no different to that, because if all they want to get rid of the merit points, how come only these drivers, these police could share tickets like that? So I feel I have a sympathy for these drivers, and I find that they should do something about it and try to derail that kind of attitude.
Thank you very much.
That wickedness.
Thank you very
have
much.
a good day.
Thank you. Tim, is that voicemail you're playing, or is it live?
Voice note.
Voice note. All right, go ahead. Repeating himself right through.
Go ahead, caller.
Hello, good morning, Lennox.
Caller, good morning.
Caller here, brother. Hello? Hello?
Yes, go ahead. We're hearing you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Right. I have two real concerns this morning I want to raise.
Hello? Are you there?
You hear me? Hello?
Yes, go ahead. We're hearing you.
Right. I have two serious concerns I want to raise this morning. And I think the time has reached now that we want to see investigations and people held accountable and if possible make jail for corruption. And I'll tell you why. We saw it recently, CPF workers with Al-Rawi and all of them, and the Minister of Finance and whatnot, no budgetary allocation, extension of contracts, and no cabinet approval and all of that. And you see what it resulted in? It is chaos that people have been out of a job. The government is being made to look bad because of that decision by the PNM government. And I think that there's also because that involves $1.4 billion. And if it is that some fraudulent thing took place, then call me, but Al-Rawi and all of them must be held accountable. And there must be an immediate investigation, you know. We can't prolong this thing because this thing could end up in, in criminal activities because when people can't get jobs, they could resort to crime. Understand what I'm saying, Lennox? And now while drawing attention to that, I saw in the news last night where MTS workers, and there's a couple thousand of them, who do security work for the state. They guard hospitals, schools, state institutions, and all that and whatnot. They have not been able to get their pay, their salary. And as a consequence, all the money that was allocated to MTS to pay these workers have been, dissipated, I should say. And therefore, the former Minister of Finance should be held accountable because they have not provided anything. And it means to say that, therefore, there is no money to pay these people the constraints that this government has to go through in terms of getting revenue to pay these outstanding monies that that last regime thing. It means that, therefore, they would have to want two options, and what the PNM has been doing is borrowing money to put you in a more kind of situation that, we exceed the borrowing limit, or they have to dip in the revenue and stabilization fund. So all these are matters that have to be investigated. But Lennox, one of the main concerns that I have this morning, as you are a fighter, for the Lavante Beatum people, there is an article on the papers yesterday, Sunday, the 3rd of August, page 8. I don't know if you read that article enough. What's a risk? $35 million annual penalty. You read that article, Lennox? Hello? Hello? Lennox?
Yes, sorry that my mic was off. My mic was off. Yes, I did with respect, of course, to the wastewater penalty, with respect to the EMA and that violation. Go ahead.
Right. Lennox, why I drawn your attention to this? This was a situation that... Hello? Yes, you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Go ahead to Rapuna and call.
Right,
talk.
Yes, this was a situation that was red flagged by the EMA since 2019.
Like you get pipped, do
yeah, you hear me now, right? And the PNM never resolved it. That is 6 years now. They were red flagged by the EMA to resolve that situation because Tutu water is flowing in Beatum. The residents, they are suffering and whatnot. But yet still, these PNM people, these Lavante Beatum people down there, still went and vote for the PNM. They support Kerr, Marshall and what have you. Instead of they supported the UNC who to do something to improve their lives and that condition they're living under. They went and they voted back for the PNM. Now they are complaining. But my concern is this, Lennox. The EMA, you give this government 1 year moratorium in order to resolve that matter or face a $35 million penalty. When you had 6 years from 2019 to take that necessary action, why is it that only didn't charge Marfa Gonzalez and the PNM and what have you? Is it because that the EMA is an arm of the PNM, or they're afraid, or they're being controlled by the PNM? Because that was a decision should have been taken, because this is an environmental crisis, a hazard. And I can't see how the hell, knowing that the situation that this government is in terms of finance, you give them a 1-year moratorium to resolve that matter. And where would they get the millions? Because I think, if from what Bahari Panara, the minister, said, it would cost well over $100 and something million to rectify that situation. So I'm asking the question, why is it that the EMA didn't take the necessary action to charge the government then for 6 years of failure for not rectifying that situation? But you want to come and give this government a 1-year moratorium? Lennox, something is definitely wrong, and my main concern is this, that you beaten people. What happened to all this so damn stupid? All they still went back and vote for PNM after they have only that scholar living in raw sewage water flowing in the beatum all over the place, a health hazard and what not, and all they still went and vote for the PNM. And now the PNM government is trying to take action, the EMA, against this government for the PNM failure. They should be charged. Marva Gonzalez and the PNM should be facing the court. They should be charged for neglect of duty. Lennox, let me hear a comment on that, please, brother.
Yeah, well, all I have to say is that I read it. I was a bit distraught. I didn't read to the extent that you have, because clearly I wasn't aware that the EMA did pronounce on the matter and it has been raised in recent times, and therefore there is some kind of compromise that has developed where they have given a moratorium for the government to, of course, make good the payment or rectify the situation down there. But it is horrible. Go ahead, caller.
We missed that one, Lennox.
Missed that one? All right. Sorry about that. Yes, indeed. There were two other issues that I'd like to raise based on the callers, and in fact, two of the voicemails. But we have a caller? But go ahead, caller.
Morning, Lennox.
Good
morning, Andy. And morning, Mickie K. Lennox, the caller before Tenapuna. I will put him 100% with the award with the police get for giving out ticket. As a citizen of this country, I figure we in more crisis than the ticket crisis. I say award should be given out to holding the people who committing murders. These Venezuelan, Spanish and Colombians that we have here, Mexican gang, we should be giving out awards to the police for who holding these people. In other words, they used to come see about the business and go back. Now they're staying here. This is the award people want to see. Not getting a man a ticket where you know he light blow and a man just pull to pick up 2 passengers. Or they getting an award for that. That is the way we reach to, and we have things more serious than that, Trinidad and Tobago. That is the best the police could, according to the tune, that the best the police could do. Yeah, that the best the commissioner could do. Yeah, gain an award for ticket. And we have so much of people with so much murder being solved yet, so much kidnapping in solved. Eh? This is where we going. Eh? The corruption in this country, the 3 billion we're missing. Up to now, we in here, the 4th squad, nobody get award for how the mismanagement of we money that gone through under Inbert and them and with Newman George and all these people at the AGC and all about. By the best, all you could show we in this modern time. Boy, look there, man. God really help we, you know. I go on.
Okay, Lennox, you could go ahead there. I say you could go ahead, Lennox. No call on the line.
Right. Let me just get my bearings. Callers, of course, somebody called my number 3376940. Not that number. Call the numbers that are on the screen. Let me just call them out for you so that you have an appreciation as to where you can make your calls. The numbers to call are 225-6644, 225-6644, 239-5120, 239-5120. The number that is flashing across my screen that you're seeing above the person in the studio, that is my personal number, and you can get me on corridor transformation in the night on that. But other than that, the number that is below on the screen, you will see there. And of course, for those who want to make a voicemail, then of course you can call 366-3053, 366-3053, and that will be, of course, WhatsApp only. All right. So the other two numbers you can call directly in studio right now to get us on the ground report to 225-6644, 225-6644, and of course 239-5120, 239-5120. All right. Want to make sure that you get that clear so that you don't have that difficulty or challenge. And of course, you have the option of making certain that you can have at your convenience a voicemail facility as well. Yeah, I too was taken aback by that statement that was made, that contribution that was made by a couple callers prior to, of course, our good friend who last commented on it. I would have expected that alongside, simultaneously, with that presentation, I would have liked to see awards being given for persons who would have, of course, intervened in capturing the most wanted person in the country. They have solved a particular murder. They have, of course, dealt with even in a humanitarian situation where they might have, of course, prevented, for example, a child from getting knocked down, that kind of thing, simultaneous with that. And of course, to deal with that specifically, one would have expected that these strict liability offenses, because once your light is off, you get a ticket because it is called strict liability. You just have to see the act just has to occur, and of course they can, without questioning. But I think the police are the first judge, the first observers, and therefore that discretion must also be exercised. I don't think that it is right to encourage people to a competition, so to speak, as to who could issue the most tickets. Lambla, helter-skelter, higgledy-piggledy, without, of course, the use of the humane and the circumstances that may have caused a situation, and therefore the police must have that discretion. And I trust that in spite of the fact that you are being rewarded for issuing tickets, that many of the circumstances that I've just indicated that may just be, of course, a situation that could be easily remedied without having to issue a ticket and put people in further financial distress, that you take that into consideration. That's all. And as I said, of course, I would love to see awards for persons who would have captured the most wanted person, solve a murder, and or break-ins or robberies, carjacking, home invasion, all of that. I would love to see awards for that. I think that is much more palatable for the population. But to tell us a singular event with respect to tickets, I think is more distressing for most of the population, particularly the motoring population. And I agree that should not be a feature because it doesn't augur well. We have a caller. A pleasant Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, gentlemen. Calling from the bar boy.
Go ahead,
Gentlemen, you see, we had to understand security and the police service also. Not every police officer could be made like a hero and put into the public domain, and that could result in security issues for the police officer also. There are a lot of police officers that work undercover and think and prefer to remain, in the background while they're doing their job. Now, yes, everybody should be rewarded, and probably, it's a step in the right direction, at least to try something new. Because I could remember playing football, being a left back, and only the people in the front who score the goal, they always been recognized and being the hero of the game and all this kind of thing. This time you taking all the jamming in the background there, and nobody studying that, hey, use a defender, really. And then a man just tapping a ball in the goal, and he's the hero of the game. You understand? So we have to look at things different.
Mr. Bagpaw, sorry to intervene, but the point I'm making is that you can't make that recognition without being public, right? I'm saying that, you can have it clandestine, public. I mean, privately, the public doesn't have to know where you can, of course, then you do. But certainly among the rank and file, you certainly could make those awards or recognition. But go ahead, that's the point I was making.
And then we don't know if that is probably happening, because I saw recently where a set of officers was promoted and all these kind of things. So probably they again rewarded for their hard work and dedication to the service. And then people complain and make tick if it's some kind of so any kind of thing like that. I don't see it as that, because I don't think I've ever got nothing like for any issue like that, because yes, we know that one the majority ticket is what has been on the highway, and you see the kind of nonsense be taking place. If a police vehicle is the highway on that morning, before it reach Grand Bazaar, about 200 people will be getting tickets, because every time you see a vehicle stop, you'll see one park light, one brake light lighting, all these kind of things. And when we do nonsense and we get a ticket, we just want to blame the police. If we contribute to our part, a lot would be different. And then when you listen to the people who against us stand wrong, and you put a little parallel to this scenario as to we always be dancing and having a good time and boasting how we are as a nation of together, one love and all kind of thing. But when time now come for us to be patriotic to each other and say, hey, hear what? Although I don't understand criminal elements in their homes and raping them and beating them and rocking them and all kind of thing. And we didn't supposed to have one reservation towards the criminal in the sense of that feeling sorry for them if somebody defend themselves and kill them stone cold dead, shoot them in the back, foot, head, neck, anywhere. Just destroy them and eliminate them. Every citizen what is it? And then we talking about and use of force, and this whole country could go and everybody will shoot up. Where I live, I know it had at least about 5 people with firearms within the community, and I never see anybody yet was reckless with the use of a firearm by threatening anybody or to just going out any road and shooting anybody or kind of thing. So we in this country, something really wrong with us. With the unlawful hatred kind of mentality that we just cannot come out of it and start to want a better Trinidad and Tobago for everybody else. For years, we have been seeing how this thing just keep on growing. PNM has done every single thing. They come like they take a dead plant and bring it back to life where crime is concerned in this country. We could be more relaxed and happy. Now, everything that you do in the country, you gotta be so cautious and careful about being robbed. Just imagine broad daylight in the city. You cannot walk with even a piece of foil around your finger. Somebody want to thief it out at you. And that is what PNM have done to the country. And then people talking about using excessive force, and if it's a young boy, you can't shoot them and all kind of thing. Let me tell you something. This thing has gone too far. And the only solution for now is for people to protect themselves in their home. If every week they eliminate about 20 home invaders, that is a good step. That means there's 20 less that you have to worry about. 20 less families have to get up in the night and go to fear. Why these people are so concerned about the criminal element? Don't take some time out and visit people who has been robbed and raped and died in their homes, children, mothers, fathers, grandparents. Let it go and just have a 2-minute conversation with these people. Nobody don't talk about them, everybody just forget them. And then you go here, well, you know, they had the boy so long in jail, they are treating them good, they take away all your rights. Go and find out if the people who went through these home invasion, if they're surviving, if they're living, if the children could go outside, if they could do anything. And then they will realize it dotishness, they just be supporting. And as always say, it's only when it comes knocking on the door, then they would realize what nonsense it is be supporting. We reach a point in this place that we should never ever have reached. When the murder told us keep going up, and then that turns Rowley would happen somebody like Fitzgerald, the Minister of National Security for our country, and we sit down. It come like he Rowley, just enhance criminality in the country. Let it flourish. You understand? Gentlemen, have a good morning and enjoy the rest of our program. Take care later.
Same to you, my friend. Same to you. Thank you very much, of course, for that contribution. We have another call?
Oh, we don't have any call on the line.
All right. Well, yes, well, of course, let me just, because the focus seemed to be, of course, that on the iniquities of the last administration and the, of course, hypocrisy of the present opposition, which of course is the same party that would have been in government in the last administration. I'm talking about the PNM here, and indeed, of course, to demonstrate that all what they are pretending to be in terms of concern for the downtrodden and the disadvantaged is merely political posturing. Really, that's what that is all about, and we need to say it as it is. There could be no other description. There could be no other purpose, because as the old people say, that when a dog is sucking egg, it is difficult, of course, to dissuade it from so doing, because it would have been set in its ways. Well, that has happened. And the other point, I think I have exhausted the, well, not really, but I would say for the time being exhausted, of course, the Vincent Nelson scenario. I think that was very well received, and of course the contributions of people like Ms. Santa Cruz has certainly brought into highlight, into consideration other elements. But I want to, of course, look at the whole question of the PNM and the fact that they weren't able to use what they would have used in 2015 and 2020, and that is to say, the whole undermining of the electoral process. They used COVID, of course, in 2020. In 2015, of course, they used the EBC and that extension, and we don't know exactly what we are not. Go ahead, we are yet to find out what the.
Good morning,
what
Professor.
the real benefits. Or should I say they gained, but we know that they gained some electoral benefits. Only 23 seats, however. Go ahead, caller. Sorry about that.
Good morning, yeah. Good morning, Professor. Lennox, Mick, Andy, where you are, and Mickie.
Caller?
I want to clap back strongly at a so-called independent senator. I believe his name is Anthony Vera. And I want to ask him, tell me what is a toxic political environment? I think he is deflecting from the real issue. The real issue is that, as everybody said, the Lord had made a decision. We voted for the new dispensation. We voted for Kamala Prasad to move us out from the bondage and the hypocrisy and the corruption of the PNM. Let me give you some evidence that shows that this person, they call Vera, might very well be spreading the discourse that has been uttered by the president, spreading the gospel of the PNM, which is corruption, nepotism, mediocrity, etc. Now, you remember, he created a political storm when he brought the judiciary and by extension the appeal courts into the impeachment of a former president. Remember that scenario? And president, the former president who gone to the great beyond, and the current president has not sanctioned him. They continue to appoint him as a PNM senator, hopefully to spread the gospel of the PNM. The other issue is that the sitting CJ, our wee boy, did not do any investigation to tell us if this independent senator is telling the truth or he continued to spread the gospel of the PNM, which is discord, dishonesty, etc. If he is right, then those judges must be disciplined. And if he is wrong, he should demit office forthwith. And the president's the current and the former one continue to create people to have this cause in this country. We made a decision to move forward to fix this country, and we have to do it. We have, and I am leading it on this station, to call for the removal of this independent senator, because we have seen a lot of independent senators and public servants who apparently spread the gospel of the PNM. All right, let me give you a good idea. Remember when we shut down Petrotrin? What did we do with the World DTL plant? In a different dispensation, we called it NIQUAN. And wasn't there an independent senator who was very, very silent for all that corruption was taking place? And he ended up as being a vice president in NIQUAN, and he won a lawsuit against NIQUAN for 20 million using a former UNC attorney general as his lawyer. There was a permanent secretary that the honorable senator, and it continued to say, do diligence. And she eventually got a big work in NIQUAN, and she got a big work in Republic Bank, and she advised the PP government to mothball World GTN because she knew what she wanted to do. So a lot of the independent senators, from my vantage, appears to be spewing the toxic PNM gospel. I'm going to have a nice morning.
Yeah, I think makes a lot of sense. I have that view as well. But, to what degree the country will benefit from those kinds of what I consider to be charlatan elements with the insincerity and their biases. Trinidad and Tobago could go nowhere, and therefore we have to engage in some kind of catharsis, some kind of purging to get these characters out. And of course, it starts with the president. The president first has to go. And then, of course, we have people with the level of objectivity. I don't want to say relevant bias, objectivity. But we have a caller.
Good morning to the ground report. I'm going to respond. This is my front burner. Now, to the people who go into the government, who are a supporter of the government, go into the government in this immature way. Let me tell you something, my brother. Allow Ms. Prasad Bissessa to call her first budget. When they call the first budget, every ministry will have their portion. It's only a vexed PNM who joined the UNC recently will try to go to the UNC and come around with that garbage talk in their head about when UNC win, everybody win. Everybody win, yes. We get rid of Dr. Rowley and the PNM. We get rid of them. We win there. Everybody win. But what happened to you all? You all tell yourself you could go and frustrate the administration. And I want to say this to you all. This is not like when Dr. Eric Williams and the PNM was putting in place and the African people had never let Indian run the country. That ain't working again. That ain't working. We have too much of Douglarized children here. We have too much of Douglas. We have too much of Indian neighbors now for you to come around us with that kind of garbage. Leave the woman alone. Let the woman call her first budget. Listen for our cutting food. Listen for what is going to increase. Listen for what is going to decrease and all these different things. You can't go to her. Right now, the woman is running the country and the fumes, not even fumes that the PNM live and left. Notice that saying MTS people ain't getting money and all these kind of things. What is really wrong with you all? Leave the UNC alone, let them function, because you couldn't go around Dr. Rowley with that. You couldn't go, you just couldn't go around Dr. Rowley or the PNM. The PNM doing an excellent job in opposition and they will be doing that for the rest of their life. I feel the best thing the PNM could do right now, and you people who having problem with to go ministry and try to get in, you also dissolve yourself from issues. Just dissolve yourself. Dissolve. Be no more. Because the PNM will never ever return to power here. Not once in Boots, Stuart Young, Paris Alwari, Foster Cummins, Marvin Gonzalez, all these people, Ms. Beckers, once they are in the PNM, it have no PNM. Because they are mum when Dr. Rowley was destroying this place. I'll leave it there for now. Bless. Morning again. And concerning the police, you know what I'm seeing lately on Facebook here? Why when the police come to do and check on the area, because you know we're in a state of emergency, why are seeing you ladies, some of you all carrying on in this kind of way and getting on with the police? Let me tell you something. You must respect the law. You must respect the police. Tape them, yes, you have no problem taping them. You tape them. But if they tell you to stand up, you have to stand up, Jed. They take an oath. Because look, police will come around me. If that people police will go wrong, so you have to put yourself in a position for the police to come and tell you, hey, you pop your hand, stand up, play. It's because of where you are. Show me a friend and I will tell you who you are. If you have, right now with this state of emergency, I want to put this in the public space this morning. You see, because of the tracking device and these phones, you see all the houses and friends who was collecting call from jail, your home will be visited. Your home will be visited. Because there is a direct link from prison to your home. So you always keep talking to them in prison, sending phone card for them, and pop yourself. Pop yourself. Because that's how the government and the police service intercept whatever was coming in. And because of that phone wiring to each other in the communities, there's going to go to certain house, you don't house business in the prison. That is why your house will be checked just so. So all keep it up. Keep it up. Well, you're great.
Good morning. First time caller, first time voicemail. I from the countryside. I was listening to all your voice every morning. Good program. But what I wanted to say, let the government know we have a part of the country called Toko. And they have to look at Tuku because Tuku is the one, from Tuku's side, the guy is the one who had actually made the government being in power. And we don't want it neglect Tuku at any time. And the next thing again, with the government is regardless of who say or who mightn't say, let them investigate all the corruption that the PNN did and who vexed or who lost, put them in jail, especially Mr. Colin Wood. He is to go in jail first, followed by Professor Rowley and followed by Dr. Rowley. No time the people in Trinidad and Tobago to take the thoughts and go back to the PNM. And what happened? Most important thing is this government come into power and make a country under rule. Thing that supposed to be take place for 5 6 everybody push him out, close their eye. And as soon as this government come in power, everybody want quick thing, quick. The only quick pick I know is the lotto. Because this government does not even issue their own budget. And when the government who lost was there, nobody say nothing. Who ain't get paid, everybody who eat it and not shame out. But now everybody wants something quick. It's not a quick government.
Good morning. All right. Let me just get this moving on a bit.
Thank you very much, of course, for
Pleasant.
I think your contribution has been well received.
Pleasant. Good morning, Andy, Mickie, Lennox, Trinidad and Tobago, Central here.
Splendid.
Lennox, pleasant. Good morning. You're holding on the fort. May God grant you that serenity as usual. You guys are most wonderful and, great on the program here. Now, Trinidad and Tobago, there's something that I don't know if you can assist us, please, concerning about a situation where, Trinidad and Tobago, this is something we need to really pay attention to. Lennox Smith, you see, when the law-abiding citizens are then going to pay a visit to an attorney at law, we would like the government to look in and bring us some sort of implement some kind of law for them. Because I'm telling you, these people, some of them, they're all based on money. Everything for them is money. You see this little fee thing, they like a charger just to come and ask them 2 words. And they're telling you, what's going on. You have to make it faster because we have somebody else come. We're asking our government presently to please implement something for these unfair, wicked, I don't know how to name them, right, cold-hearted lawyers and them for doing people these type of things. I'm speaking not on my behalf, but for everybody throughout Trinidad and Tobago. It is unfair to just see these people and then just less than half an hour, and you have to be paying them $300-400 or $500 just to ask them one question. Implement it in such a way that the only time they're allowed to see them is doing something for them. Not just by coming and say 2 words to them and they're telling you, well, okay, if I have a fee to ask this question and a fee to ask that question. Trinidad and Tobago, when we stand in for everything one time. That is wrong, what some of them is doing to people. You actually have to know somebody, not to get charged in that heavy manner. Just to ask 2 questions. This is something from experience I'm speaking about Trinidad and Tobago, right? It's are the ones that who really doing it because they love that nature of that job and they love to deal with things to people. But it's are the ones who just come out in that or get a little pushing in a kind of way and want to crucify people to gain wealth off of the people's strength. Or it's too wicked, the ones that who just have money. You understand? That is wickedness that all you own and all you will never enjoy that money the right way. Because all you're doing is for the money they want to that's pleasing people and the goodness from all your heart, all you're doing it for the money, as we saying. That is wrong, and we asking our present government to look into that and these attorneys and them that when you're going to say them to the public, they do not have no fee or no right to charge nobody to come and ask them a question. The only way they is allowed to charge the public is if they have them doing something physically for them. You understand what I'm saying, Lennox Smith? It is unfair. It is very unfair. They are building and eating out people faster than ever in that type of way. You understand what I'm saying? Trinidad and Tobago, so they understand it for themselves. If you check about 100 people by how much time they charge you, they ask them 2 questions. Look how they need even more for somebody to go and do an issue for them or deal with a matter for them. So it just came to mind, Lennox Smith, and I will draw it to Trinidad and Tobago attention to let them really realize what I'm saying is the truth. Because sure, it's our people on the out there, the public domain, facing that same problem. They eating all the people and their money by just asking them questions and not doing nothing physically for them. Trinidad and Tobago be too bright and intelligent for that, and it's time for that to stop. Not only attorneys alone, you understand, could eat our food. At the end of the day, we have to know we right and stand on the ground for the right thing, and we plead him, Lennox Smith, if you all could just put that joy to the government domain and let them know that the people on the ground is asking to get something implemented towards them attorneys and them. Because they're very cold-hearted, the majority of them, not all, the majority of them. Right? So Trinidad and Tobago, it just came to my mind and I said, draw to your attention. With one people, one nation, and it's one love. Remember, it's unity is the code. Congratulations to our government. Let us continue doing the hard work and see about the people business. We look and listen, Lennox Smith. Wherever you are, Andy, you are being missed together with Mickie. And, you know, we don't know you're locked on already, and we listen, and it's that.
Good morning. With the number one show in Trinidad and Tobago, Andy, Mickie, and Lennox. Lennox, yesterday I went down San Regional Corporation around West, and I saw about 3 ladies coming to ask for book grant. So I only hope Auntie Kamala will speed up and open back CPEP or somewhere so these old ladies could get open back to get some money for school. And by the way, I support Auntie Kamala in everything. I support UNC and I support your program. Andy, you and the rest of the ground report have a good day.
Lennox, them misunderstand this when you and everybody win, you know. Them think it's everybody could just come and get free gun, get free house, get free thing from the social welfare, get free thing from the self-help. You have to fall in line. There's an order. Some of them like the dunce or something or what. Them just feel that they could just walk in an office as an influencer because they was on the blogging and the thing for the UNC. It didn't make sense. You must have documents. You must. There is an order to everything. Just like everybody, they have to come through the line with the feet. Lennox, them misunderstand this when you and everybody win, you know. Them think it's everybody could just come and get free gun, get free house, get free thing from the social welfare, get free thing from the self-help. You have to fall in line. There's an order. Some of them like the dunce or something or what. Them just feel that they could just walk in an office as an influencer because they was on the blogging and the thing for the UNC. It didn't make sense. You must have documents. You must. There is an order to everything. Just like everybody, they have to come through the line where they feel they want to get things free, but then they going up just like paying and corruption. Lennox, They need to leave Auntie Kamala right now. The man trying to focus on the budget. Them on pettiness, them on smallness, them on small change, them on gravel. Auntie Kamala trying to restructure this place. This whole place needs restructuring. And it's not easy. She's seen about more than one thing. It's crime, it's accident, it's this, it's that, it's the other. But she had to focus on the bigger picture. She have a budget to call. She had to call that budget with a level of understanding and giving all these different ministry what they needs to get. Why these little bloggers and them and these little influencers and them feel that them is the MPs and them is the prime minister. So them then eating and drinking before. Why they didn't get together and go to Rowley? Eh? Why them operating so? Them is only eater food people. Them is the eater food people, you know. Once them get them, don't care who get, you know. Them go out there and campaign, and them feel the next day you must give them $1 million or give them a work. You understand? To be the prime minister secretary. No, they had to cool it. They had to rock back and cool it. Right? It's country first. It ain't no I and me and them. It's the country first. When UNC win, everybody win. And that everybody meaning everybody because the PNM was gone. So automatically everybody wins.
Good morning, Ground Report Warriors. Martha St. Joseph locked on and listening. A special blessed uprising to my Real Media TT family. What I want to touch on this morning is what Mr. Tunapuna spoke about, which is the issue with MTS, and they are stating 4,000 workers are on the breadline. Now, if you want to put across something to the public, put across the truth. Don't put across it in pieces and parables. All right? Now, I don't think the issue with MTS is salaries being paid. Salaries is being paid. Some people might get a little more money out of the pay, but salaries are being paid. What the problem is, what they're not stating, is that all the money that MTS collected for the standing orders that persons had with the different financial institutions, the money is being taken out from MTS, but is not being paid to the institutions. So the issue is now that when people go to MTS Credit Union to get a loan for school to open back to do what they have to do, they are being blanked and turned down because what is being stated is that MTS is not paying the credit union their dues. And persons are seeing on their paycheck, and on sorry, not their paycheck, they are seeing on their payslip deductions was made. And it's not been sent to the institution. Now, Lennox, if you could remember in 2019, this said incident happened already, because that's when I came into MTS and I called in the radio station and I spoke about it, because a young lady called Kerr and stating that she owing so much money and it's being taken out of her pay. So this is a recurring factor with MTS, and the EPA is being mischievous and stating that officers are not being paid because they want the money, they want the back pay. But make it be the truth. Blame the company because the company is not paying the institutions. Everybody have a blessed and safe day.
You could go ahead, Lennox.
Yesterday, very interesting, of course, commentary from various individuals. I think I made my comment with respect, of course, to traffic tickets and those what is called strict liability penalties, where, of course, so long as the police see that you have a cracked windscreen, or it doesn't matter whether it just happened or there were extenuating circumstance, they just can, of course, have the option. And I say option here with the operating word option, because they can, of course, understand and therefore put themselves in the position and come up with the appropriate decision for the circumstance. All circumstances are not going to be the same. And yes, I share the view of the last what I say, voicemail, where of course there is much more in the pestle as far as the MTS situation is concerned. But the minister, and I have the article here, the minister who's responsible for MTS, also of course Barry Padarat, he of course said that there has been some administrative, what I consider to be tweaking that has to be done, because they inherited a situation that was shambolic in nature. It was very chaotic, and not only the MTS workers, but you also have a similar situation with respect to local government workers as well, who would have seen a delay in their date of pay when they would have expected it on a particular day. It has not come, and therefore, of course, those things have to be ironed out. I take the view as well that the budgetary arrangement, and if we go back to, of course, the foundation, what the last government would have done is deliberately under budget. And there were two reasons for that. One was to give life to the illusion that they were budgeting below the 60 billion thereabout, that they castigated and criticized the previous Kamala Prasad Business administration for. They are very, very, what I consider to be conscious of what they are doing when coming to schemes and deliberate conmanship, political conmanship. They are very, very, very adept at that. And therefore, one of the reasons for the under budgeting was to, of course, show that they have budgeted less than what the UNC was budgeting during the period of the UNC. But the other area as well, which of course is equally sinister, and that is to under budget in such a way that they are able to dip into the Heritage and Civilization Fund. I know that many of you have not looked at that, but as we get the opportunity today to, of course, examine these things critically, and I'm sure there will be other opportunities as well, so to do. But you see, you access the fund, the Heritage and Civilization Fund, if you, in essence, would have under budgeted and you didn't meet, of course, a certain amount in terms of when you would have projected the price of a barrel of oil, or of course the BTU of gas. That is where you can now access the Heritage and Civilization Fund if you would have under budgeted in that regard, so that you underestimated the price. And that is why, of course, you see that they would either, in the case of the oil and gas, they will overestimate. So in that way, you get a shortfall when the actual price manifests itself. In other words, you say, well, listen, a barrel of oil is $70, but in reality, it's really $50. So it means, therefore, you would have had a shortfall in your budgetary allocation, and thus, of course, being able to access the Heritage and Civilization Fund by that mechanism, or by that, what I consider to be sleight of hand, in insincerity. Apart from, of course, the other aspect of it, which would have been political. But I wanted to share with you, as well as we move inexorably to, of course, 10 o'clock, is those areas that prohibited or prevented or inhibited the PNM from being able to steal the last elections. I mentioned already that they felt that if they went on the banner or went on the chariot of divesting Trinidad and Tobago of its colonial past And of course, I did mention earlier that it is a contradiction. It is ironic when you focus almost even deceptively, because you were telling the population, well, belt tighten. Some people say you go bust people waist with belt tightening. But you focus on the Magnificent Seven. There could be no greater symbol of colonialism than that. And you got, of course, people from Cuba to come and to try to recreate the original buildings. So to me, that throws hot water, depending on your perspective, or cold water on the idea of course, you're trying to divest yourself from your colonial past. So when they realized clearly that they weren't getting the support of the EBC in their attempt to undermine the electoral process, and the EBC would have wanted to cut their cards straight because of the pressures that were being, of course, levied on them. Remember, we here on the Ground Report, we delivered letters to the EBC. We also, of course, got in contact with several international entities relating to affiliates of, or put another way, EBC affiliation with, including, of course, United Nations and others. And then, of course, the insistence of the opposition clearly in that regard, spearheading that mission in that making sure that Commonwealth, apart from the preference of CARICOM observers to be here, and of course, we then found out at the same time that heightened our skepticism and more evidence to show what the intention is by the PNM when the then Attorney General Limo, some say Amor, his wife would have been, of course, a major player in, of course, that whole process of getting independent observers here in Trinidad for the 2025 April 28th general elections. Yeah, so all of that was at play. Some of you may not be conscious of that, so I'm letting you know. So, oh, we have a caller? If you have a caller, let's go straight in line.
Lennox, Felix here, but I want to know that Andy on live?
No, Andy has a little issue, and so we have to have the alternative, and thus here it is. But go ahead and make your contribution if you have one.
No, I don't really have a contribution. I want to find out, did you watch the video I sent for you? I didn't get to see if you see it.
Tell me the nature of it, because there are so many that I'm viewing that I want to make sure that I wouldn't accidentally see the wrong thing.
Yeah, where the Indian government, Modi and them invent the electrical vehicles and how cheap they were going for.
No, not yet. I didn't see that one. I will do that as soon as we finish, or maybe I might do it during the course of the program.
All right, do that for now and talk to the thing. All right, so tomorrow Andy on them.
Huh?
Tomorrow Andy will be on.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, he called me very early this morning to say that he's indisposed, and therefore, of course, we'll have to pick up. This is what we agree, what we are accustomed doing, whether it's Mickie would be in the position or myself, as the case may be. But the show has to go on as you are witnessing. Yeah.
All right, so right? Tomorrow we got that. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. But I'll take a look at that video as soon as I get the earliest opportunity. We have another caller. Don't forget, of course, people,
Andy, good morning to you. Good morning to the Ground Report, the Magnificent Tree. Mr. Andy, I just calling to say yesterday what I said is not the answer that I receive in what I want to know, because I use a specific genocide concerning the Hutus and the Tutsis, and I asked the question if anybody could tell me anywhere where white people kill white people like that, and the answer I get in is the French Revolution. I'm not speaking about the French Revolution because I know the French Revolution took place in the year 1889, right? 1789, sorry, to 1799, where Napoleon Bonaparte took over the French government. I know about the blues and the red. I know about the American Revolution, where 13th English state fought against England and they become America. That's why they have the state of America. That was between the 1775 to 1783. I know about the war in Russia, that Russia invaded Ukraine. That'll be the 22nd of February 2022. I know all them things. But I am talking about the genocide, what took place, where blacks, murder blacks, like the tribe, the Hutus, take the neighbor who living in the same yard, 40 feet away, 50 feet, 100 feet away, and murder them. That took place in 1994, where 1 million Tutsis was killed by the Hutus. That's what I'm speaking about. So that's why I'm asking the question. If anywhere in the world somebody could tell me when white people kill white people like that, that is a genocide I am talking about. I'm not talking about no revolution. So you have to get what I'm saying in context. You understand what I'm saying, Mr. Andy? This is what I'm saying. That is reading me out of context. Okay?
Yeah, you could go ahead, Lennox.
That's very, very, very interesting that the caller would have, because I was part of that, and I think I introduced the Russian scenario as well as that of the, eventually war of independence, American independence, but you also had, of course, the revolutionary wars, the civil wars of America as well. So there are two different wars, but two different incidents. But certainly the Hutsi and the Tutsis, the elimination of one race, if you want to call that, over another because on ethnic grounds, etc. But you also have it, of course, religiously as well, where, of course, you have the Sunnis and the Shiites, I believe it is, that, of course, even to today, the Iranians would want to, of course, eliminate Saudi Arabia because one focusing on the Sunnis, I think it's Saudi Arabia, and the other one, of course, on the other side of the religious, let's say, divide. But genocide itself, of course, is the attempt to eliminate a group of persons based on ethnicity, genetics, certain physical features that people may have, and therefore they could differentiate from each other, even though they may have, of course, a general similar appearance. So I thought I should focus and emphasize what the gentleman is attempting, of course, to bring to the table as far as his argument, and to focus on something like the Hutsis and the Tutsis at East Central Africa, where that's the situation. Not even the United Nations was able, of course, to make an intervention of the type that would solve that problem. In fact, they exacerbated it, and all kinds of things happen after that in terms of the brutality and the kind of evil that subsists at that point in time. But I was making a point about the whole question as to the reasoning, some of which we may not have been told, and I think this is a good opportunity so to do. Again, of course, I will stop when anybody calls. So I want to make it clear. I've got the numbers to call as usual for the callers, the normal callers, 225-6644, 225-6644, and then of course you have the other number, 239-5120, 239-5120, and WhatsApp. Leave us a voicemail, and of course in studio, the director or the technician will of course play your voice notes in due course, hopefully and preferably before the end of the program. That number to call is 366-3053, 366-3053. So let me resume where I left off in terms of so we have covered the whole question of why it is that there was a focus on divesting ourselves by the last administration of colonial vestige, if you want to call that. And therefore what has happened, because the EBC had clearly was not in a position to assist as they did with respect to the Tobago elections, the last one, and indeed they weren't able to assist as they did with respect, of course, to the Privy Council decision to have the elections earlier rather than the PNM going to the Parliament and abusing the Parliament with their slim majority, only 22 seats at that time, to get the postponement of the local government elections. But there were other factors that I might be a little more subtle that you may not have observed that we need to. So the sudden, of course, interest and fervor of removing the Columbus ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria from the coat of arms was exactly to do that. And who that was targeting? The African community. Just as how the question of the monkey and the banana in the 2020 elections captivated, of course, the residents and the African community in particular in Lebre and Point Fortin. I deliberately left out Laventille and so on because of their consistency and the fact that they have not yet reached the level of consciousness that the PNM is clearly toxic. It is the bane of these communities. And if they look at their own circumstance over the years, they will never make the claim, or even they may well be ashamed that the PNM have dominated, of course, these two constituencies, the Laventilles, for so long, and yet still, of course, the people have been in a state of abject poverty, abject need, and I'm talking about across the board. And indeed, having, of course, been the den of what I consider to be the criminal, talking about blue-collar crime in particular, elements and contributing to the international notoriety of Trinidad and Tobago, because after all, just for those of you who believe that there may be some skew or some let's say, deficiencies in my argument about the Laventilles, I want to tell you, the only place that is mentioned in the advisories against Trinidad and Tobago, whether it be in the United States whether it be Canada, whether it be the UK, whether it be France, Germany, Italy, and of course, farther afield and nearer as well, closer to home, is that in every one of the advisories, they said that if you decide as a resident or as a citizen of the United States or Canada, and you decide to go and invest in Trinidad and Tobago, if you do, or you go there or you come here as a tourist to support, of course, the tourism industry here, do not go on Nelson Street, do not go on Laventille, and other places in close proximity. It mentioned in the advisories. Only place, not Guayaguayari, you know, not Rio Claro, you know, not Point Fortin, you know. Don't go on Nelson Street. And where is Nelson Street? Right here in the heart of what I consider to be Port of Spain, but in East Port of Spain, that has similar socio-economic and psycho-cultural experiences and realities similar to what we know as the Laventilles. So let us not waste time. And that is why I just deviating a bit, because it's important to me, because it's a subject that I take very, very seriously, one, and it is dear to my heart. And that is why I was so irritated, I was so vexed, I was so disappointed that instead of building a pan theater for desperados on Tragridge Road, instead of doing that, where the potential for aggressiveness, gang warfare, drive-by shooting would be less, considerably so. And maybe closer, not maybe, but closer to the Magnificent Seven that Dr. Rowley referred to when he opened the Pan Theater on Nelson Street. He knew. He must have known. It is impossible that he didn't know that the advisories against Trinidad and Tobago mentioned Nelson Street. And here it is, arguably the best steel band in the world, my band, so I bias. I say they're better than All Stars and they're better than Renegades and so on. Of course, other people will disagree with me, but you have a right so to do. But the fact of the matter is that you put Desperados on Nelson Street, knowing full well of the advisories against Trinidad and Tobago, and then he created one of his, what I consider to be, toxic, illusionary scenario to impress. Let me repeat. He created one of his toxic, illusionary scenario to impress. Because whilst he was making a speech, plunging Desperados into another phase of potential violence, because of course them fellas on the hill where Desperados came from, and those fellas around Nelson Street and so on, where they constructed a, what, I think a $17 million pan theater. He must, and I'm saying he must also know that they are in war. They're in war. Why is that place was being constructed? There was a drive-by shooting right at the corner of Queen and Nelson Streets, you know. Yeah, why is it was being constructed? So understand that the government that Rowley led would have known that and still put Desperados on Nelson Street. And listen to the toxicity of his concoction for impressive purposes. You know what he said? He said when tourists come off the boat at the ports here, Port of Spain, one of the visiting boats that would bring these tourists, they will drive wrong the Savannah, the western part of Savannah, see the Magnificent Seven, QRC, Mayflower, the Archbishop Home, Whitehall, Stallmeyer's Castle, then of course turn right and on the northern side of the savannah, witness not only the botanic gardens, maybe Lara Castle, let me put it that way, because that will be part and parcel of any journey around the savannah, and of course the president's house. And then they turn right again and heading south, come down Charlotte Street, and then turn left or east into Piccadilly Street,
on the line, please,
and then they will come down. We have a caller? You have a caller?
Yes, on the line, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll pause here and I'll complete when I get the opportunity. Go ahead, caller.
Good morning, Lennox Smith. Good morning. Long time Granny, I get to it all here. Good morning. God bless all the boys. You, Pitbull, and Mickie. God bless all of us. I called to tell you, God bless, blessings to all you. Long time Granny didn't call. God bless all the boys. Let me tell you something. All the boys, don't ever let PNM go back there, you know. Because that is worse than Rowley. You're not woman for a woman. All your boys stand up. Thanks for this time, and God bless you.
Good morning, Lennox, and good morning to the Ground Report family. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is Mike W. Well, the W is really for Williams from Toronto, Canada. I'd like to just make a quick contribution this morning. I know everyone in Trinidad is the majority of people are so hopeful of things getting better, and I believe it will. As somebody who is living abroad, well, in Canada, and is hopeful of coming back in the very near future to live, I'm so hopeful. One of the things I'd like to share with the population of Trinidad is that sometimes as a Trinidadian living abroad, I have to hold my head down sometimes. And this is because sometimes, on the travel advisory, the government travel advisory for Canada, it warns people of going to Trinidad because of the crime. And it mentions certain areas. If you Google it, you will see. And I hope that changes soon, where you can see when you go to the website that it says Trinidad is safe once more. And you have to give the government a chance to fix things. Trinidad, I believe, in my opinion, is going through a transition from a government that didn't really care about the people and the suffering of the people and the crime and the economy of Trinidad, but only cared about themselves, because every person who was involved with the PNM government are all doing well. They are bickering and complaining now because they want to have the access to all the wealth of Trinidad and Tobago so they could keep stealing it. The UNC government, from what I've seen so far and what I know about them in the past, is that they're more concerned with fixing the country. Every government has good and bad. Maybe they might have some bad players in between, and maybe in the future you might have something of somebody helping someone going outside the lines, and people will say that's corruption. But it happens everywhere, all parts of the world. But as somebody who wants to come back to Trinidad, I am hopeful, and I just want to encourage everyone to just give the government a chance. It will take time to fix things. Things, I believe, will get better, and I have to believe that. Even the crime, just like in Barbados, they said anyone who's involved, I believe, in any kind of crime involving weapons, it's a minimum 10 years. I am hopeful that laws like that would come back and deter the people using these guns and stop and get them off the streets. Not just the guns, but the people. And all these home invasions, that all these things will be curtailed and stopped.
Well said. Well, that's a
And
foreigner that is monitoring
I'm
Trinidad
really
Tobago.
waiting to see the turnaround, and I have patience and I have hope. And the people who have been elected are the people in charge, and you have to allow them to make the decisions, not try to control them. Things will get better, I believe. And just to share with you my personal story, the reason why I left Trinidad in the 1980s, late 1980s, I was driving taxi. I got held up twice, and the second time